Welcome back to Tech Me Out, where we explore the human side of technology. I'm Kiende Stinson. Today we're diving into AI within K through 12 education, a space full of promise but also challenges. As schools adopt more AI and technology tools, it's crucial to pause and ask some tough questions about. I have some I'd like you to think about. My first question is, how transparent are the AI tools being used? What data are these tools collecting, and how do we know if they're biased or effective? Currently, there are no universal auditing or disclosure standards for educational AI tools. One of the biggest issues is bias and transparency. So, what are bias and transparency? Bias in educational technology happens when a tool treats students unfairly based on how the tool was designed or what data it was trained on. Artificial intelligence models are based upon data sets, and those data sets are chosen by the developers. So, without knowledge of what those data sets comprise of, certain thoughts, assumptions can be left out of that data set. And as a result, the output that an AI tool presents will be based on a limited data set. Now, every data set is going to be limited. They have to be sorted in some sort of way, right? In a specific way. But in the educational space, don't you think we should know exactly what the data sets are comprised of to limit bias? So that could mean a reading app misjudges a student's progress because of their accent, or a math platform recommends fewer resources to certain groups of students. So if your child has an accent and the model was trained on non without any multilingual or different accents or dialects included, then the tool might not recognize your child talking to it. And so that interactive aspect of the tool misses the mark. As far as the math platform is concerned, maybe because it's figured out based off of my other responses that I live in a privileged area and I have a strong understanding of math. So it's not going to provide me with foundational concepts that my parents might want me to stay refreshed on. And so I might not get access or use of that tool to its fullest potential. Transparency means being clear about how the technology works, what data it collects, how it makes decisions, and who it's built for. Without transparency, schools, parents, and teachers can't fully understand what the tool is doing, and mainly whether it's helping or harming student learning. These tools are not put into the educational space to throw people off. They're supposed to enhance the educational experience. But if the people who are evaluating the progress of the students don't know what the data sets or what the tool is based on, trained on, they can't fully make that determination. With this in mind, I recently learned that there are no universal standards for the developers of educational tools and apps in school. This means that while we have these tools and they have incredible potential, the data behind them isn't always clear or reviewed for fairness. This lack of transparency can have huge effect. It can unintentionally widen the very gaps technology aims to close. Schools in underserved areas often have fewer resources, and so AI would be great there. But if AI tools aren't designed carefully, they might reinforce existing inequities rather than alleviate them. Did you know that a 2021 study by the National Bureau of Economic Research found that AI based educational tools, when unregulated, can inadvertently amplify achievement gaps due to biased training data and opaque algorithms? What does that mean? They're giving people A's who might not necessarily get them. They're expanding upon the idea that because you answer a couple of questions right, that you're smart. I don't want that for my kid, especially in K through 12. I think as a lifelong learner, this is the moment in time, K through 12, when you're figuring out who your child is, how they learn, and you're navigating the huge amount of resources in the educational arena. And so I want to find out what their strengths are, what their weaknesses are. And if the data tool or if the AI tool is not able to really unearth that for us, where I know a teacher can, then maybe that AI tool isn't as helpful as it's been made out to be. The 2021 study highlighted that many edtech products do not disclose their data sources or conduct fairness audits. That leaves schools and parents in the dark about potential biases. Experts have warned that without standardized data and fairness criteria, AI tools risk perpetuating systemic biases, favoring students from certain demographics, misinterpreting or excluding cultural diversity or linguistic diversity, dialects, accents. So, a non majority language speaking child, for example, they might not have a favorable experience with the tech and maybe at the school simply because the data set that that tool runs on does not consider that a non-majority language speaking child is using it. Another fact, a 2023 study by the National Education Policy Center found that over 60% of these edtech products don't disclose their data sources or bias testing. 60% leave parents and educators in the dark. Here's my observation. We can't afford to treat these tools or the developers behind them like they're above scrutiny. Just because something uses AI doesn't mean it's neutral or even effective. And if the data is biased or the system is hidden, that's not innovation, it's risk. And in my career, risk, when unearthed, must be addressed. And when it comes to kids, especially those already underserved, we have to be even more careful. These tools and their makers need to earn our trust. They don't get to assume it. They need to earn our trust. They need to earn their place in our schools. So my second question is technology contributing to teacher burnout? The data says yes. Teachers are often required to learn and manage new tools without adequate training or support. A 2024 study by the Learning Policy Institute noted that 45% of teachers reported that technology demands significantly increase their stress levels, and it impacts their ability to focus on student engagement and learning outcomes. To me, this is incredibly important because it's the teachers who will be ushering in this new technology to our children. And it is very likely that the teacher either has not engaged as much as they would like to, based off of this data point, is 45%. They haven't engaged with the tool as much in their own lives due to their age. Most K through 12 teachers are age 42 years old. So there may be a learning curve just in using technology in general. They've likely spent the majority of their career teaching in a completely different way. And one of the things that tech tools provide are reports. So if a teacher has gone from being measured for performance through a mid-year test or a final test, for example, the stakes are so much higher because almost everything is being recorded through these tools. So, yes, I can understand that the stress can increase for them. My third question is this: are we risking leaving some kids behind by relying too much on technology? Not all students learn best in tech heavy environments. Many benefit more from hands on, interactive, or face to face learning experiences. I can remember growing up, I loved the imagination aspect of school. I hated the regimented, boxed out aspects of school. So I loved creative writing. I loved drawing, even though I wasn't good at it. But I there was something in me that just shot up, came alive in those classes, whereas in the other ones, I just did it. So, research from the American Psychological Association shows that excessive screen time in educational settings can reduce attention span and information retention, especially in younger children and those with learning differences. So we've laid out some of the data and challenges around bias and transparency in K through 12 EdTech. We've talked about transparency around the tools being used in the classroom. We've talked about teacher burnout because of the constant need for them to implement the technology into the classroom. We've also talked about how children might not be that into technology. And so as educational spaces increase the amount of technology that they use to teach those children, those learning differences aren't being accounted for. So this is where the Socio-Tech Connect comes in, where we ask the question, how do we gain a better understanding, not just of the tools themselves, but of how they impact relationships, learning, and community. Let's dive in. So here's my take. I'm really supportive of I'm really supportive of integrating technology in education, especially when it's done to bring families, students, and educators closer together, like using an app to identify bugs during a family walk or searching questions together online. I do that a lot with my kids. But the educational playing field isn't level. Has it ever been? Because of how schools are funded primarily through local taxes, there are already disparities. Technology should help close those gaps by making learning tools accessible to underserved groups, not widen them. The problem is there's currently no universal requirement for transparency or auditing of AI in education. So we don't always know what the data tools are, what data the tools use, or whether they've been tested for bias. Without these checks and balances, the risk is that these tools could reinforce inequalities instead of fixing them. I would propose that while these standards and requirements are being put in place through legislation and policy development within the school and externally, perhaps that would be a good time to give teachers the support they need to gain a better grasp on these tools. Let's just put a pause on it because if tool implementation is causing stress, then the organization is stressed. And if the organization is who is teaching our children, then that stress is also going to our children. So let me let that sit with you. We need clear standards and oversight to make sure AI supports fairness in the data sets, in the implementation time, and through preventing over reliance upon the tools. This, in my opinion, will help all kids succeed more. So here's where you come in. Whether you're a parent, an educator, or just someone who cares about the fairness of education, ask questions about the technology your school or children are using. Demand transparency. What data is being collected? How is bias being checked? How is the curriculum different now that the tool has been implemented? How was the decision made to use this set of tools? What is the implementation schedule? Be diligent and get the responses from your kids' school, from your community. This could likely impact their future in a big way. Help technology be a bridge, not a barrier. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Shifting gears. Now, you're going to hear from Melfi. She is a parent to the thousands of children that she helps purchase properties, educational products for her school, in her district, in her community. Let's hear her take. I wanted to talk a little bit about your professional life. You've worked procurement your whole life. I just wanted to get a little bit more of a perspective of the general decision-making process because procurement departments are incredibly powerful. You know, they make decisions on behalf of a organization, for example, or a group of citizens, for example. They need a library built in a community or a new community built. A procurement usually facilitates that on behalf of that, on behalf of that local government or that municipality or that school district, like where you work. So what's the general decision-making process surrounding that?
Well, for our district, yes, most of our funding for maintenance and operations, we have a set budget, but for actually stabilizing our campuses for upgrades, renovations, and new modernizations, we go after a bond usually every 5 years. And within that bond, you have to present what is it that you're looking to do in your propositions to help with our education of the buildings, the transportation technology, all of those things, athletics and all of those things. So we do assessments of the facilities and the education suitability and get all of that data. And then that helps us, of course, to then build the bond to know, the schools and the types of things that we're going to do. But within that, if we currently have a $2.4 billion bond that we're working on, where we have about maybe about 25, 26 modernizations of campuses that we're doing, which is a huge undertaking.
Wow.
But of course, we know within that, when you have bond funds, and I'm sure you know as well as anyone that you have to publicly, competitively bid out those opportunities out so
Mhm.
that we get the best value and that they're evaluated. So, really, we do have to go about the formal process of solicitation for our general contractors to get those opportunities for the architecture, the general construction, the design build, construction manager at risk methods and things that we've taken. We follow the law to really get down to those vendors that we work with. It's who is best suited to do the work, that submits their proposals and then that is awarded, quite frankly. So that's really how we go about it. Now, in some cases, there are paths that we take, and we are able to say we have to use this particular vendor or this particular consultant because we have justified reasons for doing so. If that makes sense. Yeah. Yeah. So and really, I mean, and talking from a procurement perspective, especially for the type of work we do, we can't just sole source. We can't just say, hey, we're going to go with you. That's a no for us. So we have a wide array of general contractors in this Texas Austin area that do great work and have won these contracts to build these schools within the 5-year bond period that we anticipate. Some of the schools, the elementary schools, go up in 2 to 3 years from design to build, but the larger the high schools, taking 4+ years or so. Yeah.
So the bond aspect, in order to get the bonds, just for the audience, I'm pretty sure that it's get put on a ballot, and so the citizens in that community will make the decision as to whether or not they agree. So in that regard, there's like consent right there. We want this upgrade. We want these tools to be put into our city. So as far as the bond is concerned, the citizens are included in that discussion. I wanted to talk a little bit more about the modernization of the schools. So, are you seeing a lot more tech-driven vendors kind of being part of the outfitting part of the building of these schools, for example?
We do definitely have. So we have a full, fledged technology department that handles all of our things from the audio visual to, fiber optics, cabling, all of that kind of stuff. So they're really the subject matter experts. Now we collaborate with them on, what part is ours to own and what part is theirs to own when it comes to the construction. So I can't speak to it completely because I'm not as much in their world, but I will tell you that our school district definitely does lead highly in advancing technology. And even the building of the schools was, for sustainability. And our school, and Richards was featured as one of the top schools that was designed by Rogers O'Brien in construction from, I think this was 2 years ago that it was featured, 2 or 3 years ago it was featured. And then our sustainability director did win a grant for solar panels. So we're putting solar panels on several of our campuses. So it's definitely absolutely a part of every thought of the school district thinking about a school lasting, for 50+ years and functioning at its highest efficiency levels. So absolutely. And that takes, collaboration between construction management, technology, and, other departments that have a say in that. Sustainability, of course, in our service center as well.
Well,
Yeah.
perfect. Well, thank you very much for speaking with me. I really appreciate it. You provided valuable insight on procurement and technology and how your district is building tech-ready schools for the future and beyond. So thank you very much for being on this episode of Tech Me Out.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
In the final episode of the AI in Education series, we will discuss upper education. From all my research, I'm almost asking, what's the point? If you'll join me, you'll hear what I've come up with. Yes, there is a point. Until then, thank you for listening to Tech Me Out. Remember, use your voice. Tech smart. We are what makes tech savvy. Tech Me Out is hosted by Keyende Stinson, a technologist and attorney with a passion for exploring how technology shapes our lives. Keyende brings a thoughtful, curious, and critical perspective to every episode, helping you understand the impact of tech beyond the screen. For more episodes and insights, visit techmeoutpodcast.substack.com.